Welcome back everyone. This is going to be the first video in a new series of Foxhole. I'm going to be changing it up a good bit in this series as it will be all things facilities, not so much combat. We're still on Charlie Shard playing under the Wardens, and we'll begin our mission about 3 days after War 18 has begun. I have been recording gameplay throughout the 27 days of this war and have not been putting videos out until now so as to keep OpSec intact. In the future, I will be looking for people to join me in doing facilities work. Depending on the amount of people I can get to join me will be the determining factor as to what level of facilities we do. My main focus this go around was initially just making a very small facility, but the vision quickly shifted from making a public use facility and going with a private facility, making tank specific products. Not making tanks themselves, but items used in tanking such as ammo, uniforms, binos, etc. My first step in planning the facility was picking an initial area of operation. I love Claustra, however this is not feasible as it lacked a nearby refinery. My next option was Foxcatcher. This has also been a favorite of mine in the past as it has a refinery and a depot across the road from each other. In this particular war, it was also in close proximity to not just a scrap field, but also had scrap mines in the town. This would be particularly important as my facility ended up having a large demand for MSUPs. I later found out that several regiments had planned a massive public oil products pipeline that fed the entire hex. Later on in this series, I was able to prove my facility usefulness and was able to finally get them to allow my facility to get directly piped into the line, as they were very selective as to who would be piped in due to limited supply. After weighing the pros and cons to this particular location, I decided to take up residence to the southwest of the town and began gathering resources to begin the operation. While my resources were cooking up in the refinery, I began planning out my facility in the Foxhole Facilities Planner online, and it was quite a sight to watch things evolve from their original plan. This, however, is how it ended up. I was quite pleased with the outcome. There are, however, a few tweaks that I would change in the future, but overall this served my particular purposes quite well. Now that I had a basic facility design, the next step would be acquiring vehicles to use at the facility. I have learned in the past that it's best to build your own vehicles and store them when offline in a private stockpile, as alts and new players have a tendency to, let's say, strategically acquire them overnight. The first vehicles that I would need would be a flatbed with a resource container, a dune transport truck, a crane, and a CV. There is no garage in Foxcatcher, however, Weathering Halls to the north of the hex has a garage and construction yard to complete these tasks. For those of you new to Foxhole, retrieving items and vehicles from private stockpiles is significantly faster than pulling from a public stockpile. Do keep in mind though that stockpiles have a 52-hour timer, and said timer must be refreshed by a player with access to the stockpile before the timer runs out. If you do not refresh the timer, all items and vehicles will be released into the public stockpile for anyone to retrieve. Now back to the never-ending to-do list. My next task would be to farm salvage to place into a refinery to make BMATs. In order to build the facility, Foxhole Planner advised me that I will need over 20,000 BMATs to build the facility. The current salvage to BMAT ratio is 2 salvage for every 1 BMAT, so I would need over 40,000 salvage to build the facility. With that being said, this only includes the total for Tier 3 defenses and facilities, and at this stage in the war, we were only in Tier 1 facilities, and it would be a good while before reaching the next tier. While the first batch of BMATs was cooking up, it's time to pull out the CV, load it down with gravel, which is made from coal at the refinery, and go start building the countless foundations that would be required to seat the facility on. While the CV is being filled, I would like to ask each of you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, the Medic Gaming Discord is up and running, and you can find the link down below. As this will predominantly serve as a Warden Foxhole Discord, verification can be completed by taking a screenshot of the F1 menu and submitting it in the verification channel. Once this is done, please allow some time for review. I would absolutely love to have a decent number of tight-knit folks spitting out products and doing operations. Now, back to the task at hand. This pad is going to be an 8x3 pad built from 4x4 foundations. This translates to just shy of 25,000 coal, or 5 resource containers full. There is no coal field in Hex, so these materials were obtained from Osterwall in the next Hex over to the west. Once this, for lack of better terms, boring milestone was completed, it was time to return to the refinery and fill up on BMATs to begin building the first bunker base. This bunker base would serve as the initial supply point for facility operations and later would be used for a tanker supply point, where tank crews could load up on ammo, kits, petrol, and more before shipping out to the front line. Another tip to you newcomers: bunker bases in the back line level up 3 times faster than those in neutral or enemy territories. After upgrading the bunker base pieces to Tier 2, with the exception of the bunker piece itself, it was time to start laying out the garrison pieces. These would serve as the facility's main defense from enemy partisans and attacks. This was done in different stages as, for instance, howitzer garrisons would likely not be needed unless the front line began pushing back towards our hex. This was done to cut down on MSUP costs. There is no need to worry at this time about naval artillery, as A, naval vessels are quite a ways away from being unlocked, and B, Foxcatcher is well outside the range of any naval artillery. For now, the focus would be getting the bunker pieces dug and garrison pieces built for when AI gets unlocked. As for defensive coverage and fields of view for the garrisons, all of this was predetermined using the Foxhole Planner, as it provides fields of view when placing defensive garrisons. The sheer number of garrisons to be dug and built was a very large task for just the 2 of us. We started to burn out on that very quickly and decided to take a break by starting to build the initial facility buildings, such as the materials factories. This would allow us to start gathering the resources needed to build the resource transfer stations and material transfer stations. Power stations and materials factories require BMATs to build, however, transfer stations require construction materials. These construction materials, also known as CMATs, are manufactured in the materials factories. The basic recipe is 10 salvage per CMAT. Upgrades to the materials factories can be made to unlock other recipes, such as 25 salvage for 1 CMAT and 1 sandbag. Other upgrades allow the manufacturing of Assembly Materials 1 and Assembly Materials 2. Upgrade costs vary depending on the upgrade chosen. For instance, the Assembly Bay upgrade costs only 50 BNATs, whereas the Forge upgrade costs 200 CMATs. Once you upgrade a materials factory, you will not be able to make any other upgrades to the factory without destroying the structure and rebuilding it. The same goes for power stations as well. If you upgrade a power station to a petrol power station, you will not be able to change it to a coal power station unless you destroy it first and rebuild the initial structure. The initial plan was to run the facility off diesel power, as the refinery was close by, and our power consumption would only be a max of 18 megawatts to produce items from small arms workshop, a materials factory, and 2 cranes. This plan, however, would change very shortly down the road after learning that petrol would be readily available in the area. This allowed an increase in power and overall production. Speaking of production, stick around to the end of the video to see the total production numbers from the facility operations during this war. I was very satisfied with the total numbers, as the entire project was upkept and maintained purely by myself. I did have help building for approximately 2 hours as shown in the video, but everything else to follow was done single-handedly. From gathering resources to make MSUPs to slinging a sledgehammer in the comp fields to make concrete. Like I said earlier, it was a massive uptake on my part, but it was definitely worth the effort in my opinion. If I can recruit the help of others to join me, overall production and efficiency will increase significantly. To join me in future projects, click the link below to join the Discord. Now that we have the power stations and materials factories built, we can then start production of CMATs. We'll start by turning on the power station to provide electricity to the materials factory, and then we'll choose the desired recipe in the materials factories. The recipe to produce 1 CMAT from 10 salvage takes 2 megawatts of power, and we have 2 factories running, so we will have a total usage of 4 megawatts of power. Our current power output from the 1 power station using diesel is 5 megawatts. While we wait on the CMATs to cook up, we continued building the facility defenses. The design of garrison pieces are the current industry standard 2x6 housing a single AT garrison on the front middle section and 2 machine gun or rifle garrisons on the 2 rear corners. This is the more efficient setup after the recent building update and change in building mechanics. Building in this manner maximizes overall health and breach health while keeping building materials to a very minimum. An important item to keep in mind is that we only upgraded the bunker pieces not being used for defenses to Tier 2 while keeping the defensive garrisons at Tier 1. We did this because if you dig a bunker piece, upgrade it to Tier 2, then try and build a defensive garrison, it will not allow you to build a Tier 2 defensive garrison if the bunker base itself has not unlocked Tier 2 defensive garrisons. Doing this will mean you will just have to wait until Tier 2 defensive garrison pieces are unlocked by the bunker base. Another item to point out for any new players is that the bunker pieces are placed first before being dug out completely to ensure correct placement. Some land features may prevent building. There have been times where bunker pieces have been placed and dug, and you get the last piece in and it won't allow placement due to some land feature that you cannot move or you cannot control. You end up having to destroy the entire progress and dig it all up again. The reason we hit it once with a shovel is because if you do not dig at least once, the dig site will disappear after a few seconds. Hitting it with a shovel once will begin the dig progression, and it will not disappear unless damaged by artillery or machine gun fire. If you see somebody placing garrison dig sites and they tell you to hold off on digging, this is why. They intend to place all the dig sites first to ensure that they are indeed able to place all pieces as planned before digging them. I'm out of diesel, damn it. Okay, we're still doing good. We're doing good. The goal was to, at minimum, get the west wall defenses up to Tier 1 machine gun and rifle garrisons to at least provide us with a little protection when AI is unlocked. After this was completed, we retrieved some of the CMATs we cooked up and started placing transfer stations. These would be necessary to store resources and materials for use at the facility. For those of you who have participated in building a facility in the past, you know that getting precise placement of all these buildings is paramount. Alright, we can build them. Matter of fact, if you want to hop in the crane and pick that thing up and set it on here, and we'll bounce. After scooping for more salvage, it was time to build another key piece of the operation, the small assembly station. This would initially be used to build the necessary small gauge rail trains needed to move materials around the facility. Another use case for my purposes was, since driving through the facility requires driving off-road, this small assembly station would also allow us to upgrade the dune trucks to tracked vehicles. Adding these tracks does slow its speed overall on the roads, but allows much faster travel off-road. Later in the war, other vehicles such as the Harvester and ACV are unlocked later on in the tech tree progression. Now, this entire video has just been day 1 of the facility. There are many more videos to come of War 18, I can assure you that. There are particularly more intensive in editing, as there's not just hours of videos, but literally days, so it's taking a lot longer to get these videos out than expected. But to wrap this one up, let's go over the total production numbers. I started tracking this stuff a few days after production began, so they might be a little shy on a few of the numbers, but I did want the numbers to be real and not guesstimations. So let's get right into it. First, we have the 30 mil crates. We did 40 of those. Total shells is 800, and total salvage to do all this was 6,000. 40 mil, we did 270 crates. That's 5,400 rounds with a total expense of 225,000 salvage. .68mm, we did 190 crates for a total of 3,800 rounds, 150,000 salvage. Stickies was 180 crates, 1,800 stickies, 59,000 in salvage. Tank uniforms was 120 crates. That's 1,800 uniforms at a cost of 1,300 salvage, or 13,000 salvage. Explosive mortars, we did 200 crates. That's 3,000 rounds at a cost of 51,000 salvage. Shrapnel mortars, we did 180 crates, 2,700 total rounds for a cost of 21,000. Now here comes the big ticket item. This is based off of the 383 MSUPs per hour. That's 24 hours a day. That was actually ended up being a lot more. I think it was in the 400s. But just to keep, the numbers simple, we're going to go with what the Foxhole planner says. This ended up being 10,000 packs of 20. Total MSUPs was 202,000 with a cost of 1.5 million salvage. Total salvage used during the whole operation is 2,043,930. All I can say is I was a very busy bee. But that's enough for this video. We'll go ahead and wrap it up. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget about the Discord. Go ahead and shoot your application in. We'll get you verified and on the team. Hope you all had a wonderful Christmas and are off to a great start with the new year. And I'll see you in the next video.